What's a crime that isn't taken seriously enough? After school, I got home to find our apartment door slightly open. My mom always locked it, so this was weird, but I figured maybe she came home early from work. When I walked inside, there was this guy in dirty coveralls kneeling by our kitchen sink with a toolbox spread out on the floor. He jumped when he saw me and quickly stood up, wiping his hands on his pants. The guy was skinny with a scraggly beard and kept glancing at the door like he wanted to run. He had this nervous smile that didn't reach his eyes, and his hands were shaking a little bit. I asked who he was and what he was doing in our apartment. "Just the repairman, kid. Your mom called about a leak," he said while already packing up his tools. His voice cracked on the word leak, and he wouldn't look me in the eye. Something felt off, but I was 15 and didn't know much about home repairs. Maybe repairmen were always nervous around teenagers. He asked if I could show him where the other pipes were in the apartment because he needed to check the whole system. I thought that made sense, so I showed him the bathroom and the laundry closet where the water heater was. He kept pulling at pipes and tapping them with a wrench, making thoughtful noises. At each spot, he'd unscrew something and put it in his toolbox. In my parents' bathroom, he spent extra time under their sink. He actually crawled all the way under there with just his legs sticking out. I heard metal clanking and scraping sounds, but figured that was normal repair stuff. When he came out, he had copper pipes in his hands that he quickly shoved in his bag before I could get a good look. "These old pipes are the problem. Gonna need to replace them all," he said while heading for the door. He was walking fast now and breathing heavy like he'd been running. His toolbox looked way fuller than when he'd arrived, and it clanked with every step. I followed him to the living room, confused about why he was leaving so suddenly. My mom walked in right as he was reaching for the doorknob. She looked surprised to see a stranger in our apartment and asked what was going on. The guy didn't even turn around, just mumbled something about being done for the day and practically ran out the door. Mom watched him go with her eyebrows raised, then turned to me for an explanation. I told her about the repairman fixing our pipes, and she got this confused look on her face. She said she never called anyone and hadn't noticed any leaks. We figured the landlord must have sent him for routine maintenance since he was always doing stuff without telling us. Mom went to start dinner and I went to do homework, not thinking about it anymore. The next morning I was in second period when the principal's voice came over the intercom asking me to come to the office. I grabbed my stuff, wondering what I'd done wrong. When I walked in, my mom was sitting in a chair crying harder than I'd ever seen. Her whole body was shaking and she could barely breathe between sobs. She grabbed me and pulled me into a hug so tight it hurt. Through her tears, she told me there had been an accident at our apartment. My dad had taken the day off work because he wasn't feeling well. He'd been sleeping on the couch when the gas explosion happened. The whole living room was destroyed and he didn't make it out. The fire department said someone had stolen our copper pipes, including the ones connected to the gas line. Without proper pipes, the gas leaked all night, filling up the apartment. All it took was my dad turning on the TV, and the tiny spark from the remote caused everything to explode. Our neighbor, Mrs. Chen, heard the blast and called 911, but it was too late. I thought about that nervous guy with the shaking hands and suddenly felt like throwing up. I told the police everything I remembered about him, how he knew exactly where to look and how he'd been under every sink, how his toolbox got heavier with each room, how he'd practically run out when my mom came home. They found him 2 days later trying to sell copper pipes to a scrapyard across town. He still had that same nervous smile when they arrested him, but it turned into shock when he realized I was the kid from the apartment. He'd been hitting different buildings all week pretending to be a repairman and stealing pipes to sell for drug money. At the trial, he tried to say he didn't know anyone was home and that he'd never meant to hurt anyone. The judge didn't care, and neither did I. My dad was gone because this guy wanted $40 worth of copper. He got 25 years for manslaughter and theft, but it didn't bring my dad back.